The Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act has helped many families that are struggling to make ends meet during this pandemic. But there's still one group who's not seeing proper financial assistance, and that's new parents. Joining us now, member of the Armed Services Committee, Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois. She is an Iraq War veteran, Purple Heart recipient, and former Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. And we are honored to have you on the show. Can we start by asking about your efforts to help new parents and newborns through this?
Of course, Micah. One of the things that we noticed in the CARES Act was that if you had a newborn this year, a baby that was born in 2020, you were not eligible to get the $500 payment for each child during this year. You would have to wait until you file your taxes next year. And so we introduced a legislation to allow new parents to be able to claim that $500 this year.
And how much support does it have? How quickly could this actually get to new parents?
This could happen fairly quickly. So I'm very proud that Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina and Senator Mike Braun, both Republicans from Indiana, have joined me on the bill, as well as my good friend Amy Klobuchar. So it's bipartisan. Right now my job is to convince Mitch McConnell to allow it to be attached to the next CARES package, which is in negotiations right now.
I want to ask you about overall leadership decisions being made in this, especially as it pertains to reopening America, which many believe, most believe, scientists believe that testing would make that mass rapid testing would make that process abundantly safer. Do you believe the president should invoke the Defense Production Act to nationalize testing?
Well, I think he should invoke the Defense Production Act to nationalize the logistical process and get all of the test equipment out there to everyone. And he has failed miserably in doing that. He's invoked some of it, but, he did it to reopen meat packing plants, but then he didn't provide any test kits for all of those workers who have to go back to work in those meat packing plants, for example. And we desperately need testing right now.
Willie.
Senator Duckworth, it's Willie Geist. It's great to have you on this morning. I want to appeal to your life of service and to the work you've done with veterans since then. Can you talk about what's happening to our veterans community? Because I don't think it's getting enough attention. Many of these long-term care facilities where veterans are living, veterans' homes across the country, from Massachusetts down to New Jersey and Illinois, where you live, have seen outbreaks and death at a scale that we're not seeing in other places. Why is that exactly, and how can we zero in on that problem?
Well, that's because those veterans' homes are actually state-run. I was state director of Veterans Affairs. Most Americans don't know that veterans' homes are not a federal they're not run by the federal VA. They're run by state VA. So there's a mishmash of leadership on all of those. So if you're from a state like Illinois, where our governor has been very, very proactive, you'll see that there has been very few cases, and those that have occurred have been well managed and are getting treatment. But if you're from a state where the governor has reopened the economy too quickly, then you're going to see higher cases. And so again, this is a lack of leadership from the federal government providing aid to all of these governors who are in charge of running these veterans' homes. And so there's no national standard for who can visit the homes, who can't visit the homes. It's up to individual governors. And right now, it's the Wild Wild West out there. The president has made it the Wild Wild West. You got governors competing against each other for PPE. My own governor had to fly in an aircraft full of PPE under the cloak of darkness so that the federal government didn't come and seize it from him after the president said, go out there and find it on your own. It is crazy out there.
And Governor Pritzker has talked about this 5-phase plan to reopen the state of Illinois, kind of splitting your state up into 4 regions, acknowledging that the needs of each of those parts of the state will be different. Chicago's different from somewhere downstate. Is he doing this wisely? How quickly should Illinois be moving to reopen?
He's doing it very wisely, and he's doing it based on a couple of things. 4 of the 5 steps of his plan involve people continuing to shelter in place and wearing masks and PPE at different stages. All of the phases of his plan include widespread testing. Illinois has actually been able to test at least 10,000 tests conducted every day for over the past week, with 100,000 tests conducted just this past week alone. This is something that the federal government has not been able to get a handle on. And, I'm on the president's so-called task force to reopen the economy, which met for 1 hour, 45 minutes of which was Donald Trump bragging about how well he's handling the pandemic. And when asked, when are we going to get the test kits? And we need these testing centers and free test kits, free testing. They weren't able to answer it. And after that, we haven't had another meeting of this so-called panel that he's put together. So I really commend our governors who have taken the tough steps like J.B. Pritzker has. And really, I lay the blame at the president's doorstep because he has failed to lead during this crisis.
Senator Duckworth, have you received vetting materials or questions from Vice President Joe Biden's office, submitted them? And if he were to ask you to be his vice president, would you accept?
Well, Micah, what I want is Joe Biden in the White House, and I trust that he's got a process for putting together the right team to help him do that, from the vice president on to the cabinet members. I personally have always answered the call when my country has called me to serve. I don't know if you folks remember, but I was actually a patient at Walter Reed when I was asked to run for Congress. And so I've always answered the call. Right now, my focus is on getting Joe Biden into the White House and getting real leadership into this country. And I'll trust that they've got a process that they're probably going through right now.
Okay. Senator Tammy Duckworth, thank you so much. Let us know how that goes. And we appreciate your being on the show this morning.